Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm out today. My son is sick. I should be back tomorrow, so if you need anything, I can talk to you tomorrow. You send me an email. Today, you're going to be learning about our region for this week, which is Oceania. You can see it here in red. We've got Australia, New Zealand, plus hundreds of thousands of other islands across the Pacific. Our goal today is to understand how humans have adapted to live in extreme situations like small islands in the middle of nowhere. Um, so, what we find, not just in Oceania, but around the world, is that cultures change to fit their natural surroundings. So, wherever you are, the physical environment, so like mountains, deserts, things like that, the climate, the weather, all that stuff plays into how your culture develops. So, we're going to try and figure out how do people survive in difficult conditions of their environment. And Oceania has all variety. There's rainforests, there's small isolated islands, there's deserts, there's high mountains. People have figured out ways to live in all these different locations. Here's a broken down map of Oceania. Um, the yellow islands would be like the large islands, Australasia, or just Australia, New Zealand. These tend to be large islands with lots of variety of plant, animal life, climate, all that different stuff. The green islands are called Melanesia because of their black soil. Usually, these are very volcanic islands, tropical rainforests, um, so lots of plant life, not as much animal life. The other two regions are called Micronesia, the area of small islands, Polynesia, lots of islands. These tend to be very small islands with very little resources, um, plant life, animal life, very difficult places to live. So, we're going to learn about four different islands today: Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Marshall Islands. And what we do in Oceania is we break islands into different types of islands. So, there's a few different types of islands. The first type of island is called a continental island. These are islands that are very large, as if they're their own continent, like Australia, right? So, these are very big islands. They have lots of different climates. They could have very rainy places, very dry places, cold, hot, all that stuff. Lots of different types of landscapes: deserts, mountains, plains, rivers, and as a result, a variety of cultures. The two islands that we're going to talk about today that are continental islands are Australia and New Zealand. Both of these islands have native people who've lived there for thousands of years. The Aborigines are native to Australia, the Maori are native to New Zealand. And these groups had to adapt to fit into their environment. We'll look at the Aborigines who've learned to live in the outback desert. Um, and they figured out ways and changed their culture to make it work. And then when colonists showed up, so people from like Britain showed up and conquered these lands, they adapted differently because they're using more modern technology. The main two ways of adapting into these difficult locations would be irrigation, so moving water to where you need it; migration, moving your settlement to the perfect place. Here's some pictures of Australia: very dry desert place, very little water. So obviously, if you live there, you adapt to be near the water. You live near the water, you irrigate, you move water to where you need it. Here's a picture of Aborigines who've adapted to live in this harsh desert environment. New Zealand's not quite as harsh, much more similar to, say, like the United States. It has multiple different seasons. So if you're going to adapt to live there, you also need to live near water, but you could settle and make permanent settlements with farms and all that. Our next type of island is called a volcanic island. These are sort of medium sized islands that were formed from volcanoes rising out of the ocean. Um, they tend to have lots of mountains, um, very steep landscapes. And so the whole island is basically mountains. So you're always on a slope. The soil is very volcanic, which means it has lots of nutrients for plants. So it tends to be lots of plant life on these islands, not as much animal life. The weather is kind of back and forth. You'll have months of nonstop rain and then months of no rain. All right, so you're going to have to adapt to living in an environment with tons of water and then no water at the same time. The island we're going to look at that are volcanic islands would be the islands of Fiji. Here's a picture of it. You can see very picturesque, very nice place, steep mountains, lots of plant life, but it'd be difficult to live and build a civilization on this island. Well, people figured out how to do it. Polynesians who uh, populated these islands, they did things like this. They cut into the side of the mountain to make little steps. We call this terraced farming. This is a way of building farm on a steep mountain. Also, to deal with all the rain, they would build houses up on stilts, so they'd be out of the mud and out of the water and have a safe shelter to live in. Our last islands are called atoll islands. These are extremely small islands. Sometimes they're just a collection of rocks sticking out of the ocean. Some of these are not much bigger than Summit Academy itself. So these are very tiny islands. A lot of times they have lagoons, which are just sort of shallow ocean areas around them. Um, Historically, humans cannot live here. There's no plant life or very little. There's no animal life. There's no fresh water. Humans can't really live there until modern technology. The islands we're going to look at today are called the Marshall Islands. Here you can see some of these islands. Sometimes they're circles like this. The inside is the lagoon, but very few plants and no humans. Right? It'd be very hard to live on a place like this without modern technology. But with that modern technology, people did find ways to live on these tiny little islands. Right? This one's got a runway that can bring in food. There's seaports, airports to make this livable. There's also islands that put desalinization plants, so they take salt water and turn it to fresh drinking water. But this is only possible with modern technology. But that's an adaptation humans have made. So today's assignment, you'll read about these 4 different islands: Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Marshall Islands. Then you'll complete a graphic organizer where you'll tell me the name of the island, what type is it, describe its physical features like its mountains, its deserts, rivers, stuff like that, its climate and weather, and then tell me how humans have adapted to live there. If you need anything today, you can email me. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.